Can you guys see my screen?
Perfect. Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yeah. I think Francis is on it. Oh, it's actually still recording, so that's handy. Yeah, so all I wanted to do was put it into present mode and it seemed to have booted me out. Okay, this is probably a bit better. Can you see the bigger picture now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, cool. Welcome, Francis, by the way. You're in just in time to see a technical blunder, so fair play.
Hey, how's it going?
So I'll give you a brief intro to GatherTown. I know you probably know about it at the moment. I'll just do it for recording purposes. And then I'm going to do demos on options on how to create a space to suit your needs. You'll notice that the space I created for the blended learning module was quite big. And a couple of you rightly raised the point that, there's a lot there for students to kind of distract them, which will detract from the learning goals. So I'm going to build today a smaller space where you can see everybody in the one space, but which will also have breakout rooms, so you can use them if you want. I'll do a demo on how to edit the space, and we'll have a brief discussion about the potential pedagogical affordances of GatherTown, because I'd like to get your opinion on it as well. So this is the Hangout that I created, and you can see I added in some mods there for Halloween, just for crack, and a couple of pumpkins and a couple of ghosts and stuff like this. So GatherTown do these thematic editions where at Christmas time now, you'll be able to update your space with Christmassy stuff, and summertime, they might have more summertime stuff. So they kind of do keep it updated just to make it more engaging and interesting. So it is well worth looking into it. Just within this picture here, you'll see the chalk on the floor here. So this is an off-the-shelf thing that you just add. Press X to interact and use arrow keys. So when you go to add something, it'll give you the option. Here's Zita's on her way in now. It'll give you the option just to put that sentence somewhere. And it's a very good idea for when people immediately walk into the room where they spawn, that they see this, press X to interact and use the arrow keys to move. There is a small introduction that you get when you do join a space for the first time. You get a small tutorial that covers that as well. But I did like to just reiterate that in. Okay, so welcome, Zita. I hope you can hear me. So what is GatherTown? How are you? So basically a virtual immersive environment, 3D video conferencing software. We've seen it in action on a couple of your posts for the EdTech critique. It supports movability and interactivity. And it's what they have, it's called proximity communication. So when you move towards someone, your camera and your mic couples. Of course, you can choose to have your camera and your mic off. If you have your camera off, it won't actually couple you. It'll just show a blank space. So if you wanted a privacy element that is there, if you have your camera on, when someone walks towards you, your camera and their camera will connect and you'll see the two cameras on the screen, just like a mini Zoom session. The thing that a lot of people love about GatherTown is that you're not staring intently into someone's face. There was a bit of research that came out about Zoom fatigue, and I kind of spoke of the fact that when you're having a conversation in the real world, you're not seeing 8 faces so close to your own in that way. And it had a high cognitive processing load. A lot of people found it quite stressful and were getting kind of Zoom burnout from it. GatherTown is kind of circumventing that by keeping the camera aspect quite small and focusing more on the interactive elements, which I think is pretty nice. It can actually be used as a virtual learning environment, such as Moodle, if you had the time and if you were working with people who were interested in it. So far as I can see, there's very little that you can include in Moodle that you can't include on GatherTown in terms of links, documents, videos, communication, slides, all that you can still stick on GatherTown if you want it. So why try it? For me, it's just something that's new, that's a bit different. It's free to use up to 25 people. So once you have up to 25 people in a room at one time, it's free. If you want to get more people in, like for a big conference at TU Delft, they had 200 people in. I think you pay by minute for extra participants, so it can get quite costly, and that's the buy-in that GatherTown wants you to do. But once you keep it under 25, you can use it as we've been using it. I don't know how long it's going to last for. I know they received a lot of funding and a lot of investment recently, so they may try to put up a different paywall. But at the moment, it is free, so I'd advise you to check it out if you can. It's visual and engaging. The physical breakout rooms is probably one of the most important elements of it. So as a moderator or a lecturer, you can physically see who's in a room with who. You can pop into the room as well, like you would in Zoom, but it's all happening kind of in front of you as opposed to in the kind of abstract Ethernet where you'll have to go into a Zoom and room and Zoom and come back to your one then. And this has it has a more kind of connected element to it, which is also why it's quite popular. It has an intuitive design. You'll find once you use it once or twice, it's pretty easy and the learning curve is not so steep. It has an editable map, which you can do off your space. It brings you to a different interface, and you can do more complicated editing. I'll show you a little bit of that today. And it's fun and easy to integrate in the classroom, and it supports learning. So today I'm going to demonstrate how to create a small space for your students, how to edit the space using the map editor, how to edit while in your space, and how to add slides and videos and invite others and set up a password protection if you want. So I'm going to stop sharing this one, and I'm going to share my GatherTown screen and hope that my internet connection doesn't let me down. Okay, so just let me know if you can see my landing page in GatherTown. Cool. So you'll see there's 3 here. Funds Academy, one that I'm working on with the business school here. The Blended Learning Office is the one I created for us. And then the Erasmus X Pirate Ship is where my old colleagues used to hang out for the kind of innovation hubs that all hang out here. So when you go into the gather.town/app, they'll get this interface minus these guys at the bottom, unless you have some of those. So to create a space, you just click on to create space. And it asks you, what are you building your space for? Is it for work? So in terms of offices, meetings, events, conferences, parties, talks, networking, or places. You can have like art museums, amusement parks, classrooms, escape rooms, stores, stuff like that. So I would normally pick work, stuff like this, but I just want to have a look at this one, this places one here, because there are some interesting smaller rooms that you can use here. So the functionality remains the exact same. It's just the environment has a different theme. So here you can see there's Adventures in Forgotten Realms, Botanical Gardens, Dungeon Escape, Gather Games, Islands, Mystery Mansion, Speed Gathering, where you could have people who would just sit together and talk in pairs. Very good if you're getting students to kind of find out information about each other and then talk about it to the class. Social settings like a beach bar, a cafe, there's a tavern there. And then one down here, which I quite like the look of, is Cyberpunk Detective Office, or a Cyberpunk Dive Bar. So this Cyberpunk Dive Bar I'm going to create because it's perfect for 2 to 25 people. So it's quite small, and it has these little breakout rooms, as you can see here. So normally you just click on it and it'll give you these details here. So free tier accommodation, 25 online users, then you can look at your pricing. Accommodates 2 to 25, and you have to name the space. So I'm just going to call this demo space. You can choose the password protect. So you would put in your password there. The important thing is with the password, when you're giving people access to the space, when you're sharing a link, it can choose to give you how long you want that link to be valid for. So if you just had 1 day, which is the default option until you click down, and if you post it to Moodle or something, it would very quickly become invalid. So I normally choose 1 month. So when I'm sharing, I would normally choose the link to be valid for 1 month. Just let me move this guy for a sec, and we'll go and create that space. Okay, so here's my character. I'm just going to kill my mic on this one so there's no confusion. Just going to edit this guy and just show you how we do that. I know that this was covered in one of the videos for the EdTech critique, but let's give you a look. So you have your base here. You can choose your skin type. Then you can do your hair. I went for the blue rinse. I might put that green today. Then facial hair. I'll stick on a beard. You can go clothing. So you can kind of edit this little kind of funky jacket there. Looks pretty good. And I'm going to wear a baseball cap. That's pretty much going to be me today. And then you just go join the gathering. You can see here that it's picking up the camera that Zoom has at the moment. It's telling me I'm using my AirPods for my mic and for my audio. Right, and then you land in here. And you can see I'm just walking around here using the keys. Now, can you guys just give me a quick, tell me if this is looking okay at the moment, because sometimes it might be a bit jumpy because I'm using 2. Is it okay?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Okay. So here you'll see I walked into just a breakout room, and you'll see at the bottom it comes up saying you have entered a private space, and everything else gets kind of darkly lit, and this area here gets highlighted. So if you want to have a breakout room in a small space, you will see that they're ready-made, they're packaged for you already. So you could probably have, I don't know, 2 or 4 people in each of these. Same with here, and same with this one here. You also have areas here. So just to recap about these breakout rooms, only people who are within this area can hear each other. So if I have 3 other people sitting with me here, we can talk privately, and people who are standing just outside of us in the dark squares highlighted, they can't hear us. And that goes for the teacher as well, or the facilitator. So I can't hear you guys just because it's my session, just because I'm the facilitator. So that is a private conversation. The fun element of this room here is when these are built-in games. Now, if I click that X, that will bring me through to play a game. So if you wanted to do some sort of an icebreaker with your students or people like that, you can actually use these in-house games that it has the music and everything here. And that's just an added interface that you could do if you like. There's another one here to play Battle Tetris. And this is just, they're basically just including a link here to that game, and then that comes up there for them. And these are pre-built in this space because they want to kind of give it a fun element here. Here's the bar here. The bar is a public area. There's nothing in here that is special at all. So this is a very basic space, breakout rooms, a couple of games and stuff like that. Now you can edit this space, which is what I'm going to show you now. If I go over on the left-hand menu, you'll see that there's a couple of elements. There's settings, there's build, there's a calendar, and there's chat. So obviously the chat is just like you would in Zoom. We can chat to each other. Here's the invite button, and here's a home button. Now up here, you have more options, such as inviting people, which I'll quickly cover before I go to edit, just because I mentioned it a moment ago. So when you invite people, it produces a link, and this is what it says here about the link. The invite link will expire after, the default is 1 day, and you can choose 1 month, 7 days, 12 hours, 6 hours, just to keep it private and keep it tight. If you just want one session, you could put it at a number of hours. If you wanted to put it on Moodle or another VLE, you could have it open for a month. And I do believe a month is the longest you can do it. So we'll look at settings then. You can have your space preferences about calendars and stuff like that, pinned moderator messages, preserving chat history. There's a couple of things there. Space customization. And this is what I talk about the edit map. So you can open a map maker here that will actually give you access to edit this off the space. So within the map itself, I'm going to explain that in a moment. Space access with the password, user roles, you can assign moderation roles and stuff, give people builders, and more advanced options there. So if you click on the second one, the build, now here you have these objects which you can just drag and plug and play, which is the easiest way to do your editing. But before I show you that, I just want to show you what the actual more advanced way to do it is, because it's actually not that difficult. So we're just going to edit this in MapMaker. So if I come down and click this, it takes us to a slightly different interface. And if you can just confirm that that's gone to a different screen now.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is going to load my my room here in the map and show us how to get in kind of the back end. So now you're looking at something slightly different. So this is the space, and you'll see it has coded, color coding, numbers and stuff like that here. So if I want to, for example, zoom in on something, I could press this. If I want to select an item, this is the selecting tool. I can select that, and you can see on the right-hand side, that's after highlighting that as being a table, and there's a couple of options there, okay? So it is, it's within a private area. If I go over here, here's a chair. You can turn the chair different ways if you like. You can choose different colors on that. Pool table. And these yellow guys here, this is where you spawn. So when you come into this room, you spawn within this area. So new characters, they come in here, which is beside the door. Now, if you wanted people to spawn somewhere else, you could choose for them to spawn in a different area, for example. Maybe if you're doing a bigger place, you could have several spawning areas. So the objects here, just 1 second. So if I choose this little stamping tool, this is related to getting objects into your area, and you can choose more objects. Now, I was talking about the Halloween stuff earlier. So you can choose newly added, and you can see all of these things. So it's still just a Halloween theme going on. They have all the rugs and stuff. So the newly added stuff will be at the top. There's office decor, candles, computer monitors, cyberpunk desk lamp, desktop computer, gamer chair. Things if you want to present are here. And you'll notice that I used a bulletin board and a video in my my previous one. So I'm just going to choose this video for a second. This gives you more options on the right hand side which you can see. So embedded video, no interaction means just nothing happens when you go to it, but we don't want that, so that's clicked off. So we want, when people walk towards this video, for it to say hit X to interact. And that's what it's going to do. So you would choose a link to a video and you would paste it in here. And then when people come up to that and interact with them, it'll automatically show them that video. So for example, if I go to YouTube and stick in, see, virtual learning, for example, and I'll just say this one here, online classes versus virtual learning. And I copy the link of this guy and go back to my map. If I include that in here, that's going to show up when we go near that video. And you'll see here there's an activation distance of 3 meters. Now you can make that smaller or bigger. That just means when will this grab the person's attention? Is it going to get it when they're within 3 meters of it, 2 meters, 1 meter? So you can decide to lengthen that or shorten that. So we're going to select that guy and we'll put him here. Okay, so that video is now in the room. So if you're doing the objects, you'll note that the object icon is clicked here. If you go to tile effects, that will only talk about the tiles then. But there's many different tiles. You'll see the options highlighted on the right-hand side. So you can choose more spawn areas where people will spawn, impassable tiles if you wanted to block off an area where people can't walk in, a portal. So I won't do this today because it's a little bit more complex, but I could set up another room and put a portal tile, say at the entrance to the bar. So when someone walks in that tile, it'll automatically transport them through to a different room. So you could have a classroom, for example, that you didn't want to be built in here in the physical space because you wanted to keep that quite small. And you could have a portal to that classroom where they step on a tile that'll automatically transport them over to the classroom. And I've done it myself. It is quite easy. So this is just something that if you wanted to play around with, you could play around with. The private tiles, they're these guys here. So that's now indicating all of the breakout rooms. So I can expand that, or I can contract that, making them bigger or smaller. And this is showing me here that there's 6 breakout rooms of varying sizes. And that's basically the tiles there. The spotlight is important because the spotlight allows the person who stands on it to be heard by everybody in the entire room, irrespective of the fact that they may be in a breakout room or not. So it is advisable to have one of those if you're dealing with big people, big groups of people, so that everybody can hear the teacher or the moderator when they stand on this tile. Everybody's mic gets tuned in. So I'm going to save that. And does it allow me to go back to the space? It does. And I'm going to go back to the space now. And if you just let me know if I'm in that space in a sec, we'll join the gathering. Okay, and you'll see here that my little TV there is ready. And when I go up to it, it's telling me to press X to interact. And you'll see it then in the bottom left corner that this is what this video contains. And if I click X, I can then click in and watch this video. So it's a good idea for a resource for your students if you wanted them to check out these videos. And I'll bring them into the virtual space and say, look, there's a couple of videos in there I'd like you to explore. It can be updated very, very easily and edited very, very easily. So you'll be happy to know that's the hard bit of the editing. So I'm going to go back and show you how you can do it an easier way. It doesn't have as many options, but if you're just beginning, this is probably the way you'll want to do it. So you just click on the hammer at the left-hand side, open the object picker, and then you can come down. And we were in the presentation ones, for example. So if I want to do this, like a photo album, okay, so to embed a published Google Slides for a photo album. So this is a book, and we're going to do, 1 second, embedded website on this. And I'm just going to go to these slides here from today's session and copy these guys in and stick them there. And we're going to go select, and I like a drink the odd time, so I'm going to put this book on the bar and encourage people to walk over to it. Okay, so that's that done. Click back there. So now that book is telling me that I got to press X to view that, and I click in X, and then here are the Google Slides that we spoke about. So I would always kind of equate this to a VLE. Instead of putting your slides on the VLE where it's quite two-dimensional, you could just do it in GatherTown and just give it a bit more interest. I would caution that, you know, probably anything you would put on the virtual learning environment, the VLE, you would probably have to duplicate and gather, or anything you put on GatherTown, you would also make sure you have it on the VLE, because some people won't want to come in and they won't have the interest. For example, they'll want to use the more traditional method of using it. So that's pretty much it, guys. I'm going to just send the invite now to you guys to get you in here. So I'm going to copy this invite, go home, invite people, and we'll do it for one day, copy invite link, and I'm going to stop sharing here, and I'm going to go back to the chat and paste this in the chat. But before we do it, I'm just going to share my slides again for a moment. You guys see my slides here? Or are you still on? Yeah, you can see them. Cool, thanks for that. So basically, these are the steps we took. We went into this website, the app, and clicked on to create a space. And we went in and we created our space. So the pedagogical affordances is like, you can see that GatherTown is well suited to constructivism or experiential learning, problem-based learning, and collaborative learning. But I was just wondering, I'd like to hear from you guys. Is there anything else you think this could be used for within your context? Or have you kind of noted something now from this demonstration where you're thinking, oh yeah, maybe I could use this in my teaching context or my working context? Because I'm by no means an expert on this. I'm just I've been exploring it myself, but I haven't used it widely. So I'm still really interested to see how you would see this working, or if you would see it working. Maybe you wouldn't. Maybe you think it's just a fad that isn't important. But what would your opinions be on it?
I think sorry.
Go ahead, Fergus.
All right, thank you. I just think on a pre-education course, if somebody was learning in the community or in work, and if it was modelled around, say, WIT and the library and the canteen and that kind of stuff, and if people were doing at a kind of an induction basis to it, not from me, but from me trying to egg people on or encourage them to get involved in academic learning. We would have people at times who would fit that bill. And if they were used to an environment like this, and even physically kind of going to the library in GatherTown and pulling out resources from it, like a video or a book or a website connection or whatever, I think that would be great. And again, once it's kind of led to take some of the fear out of it or whatever. But yeah, I think it's good, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Fergus. Krista?
Hi, Neil. Thanks, that was really interesting, because I'm just learning as well and finding out new things about it all the time. I've used it for language learning classes. I teach English as a foreign language as well, and I found it really good for that, because the small groups take away the self-consciousness that students have by practicing in a full class. But it allows me mobility too, to move in and out of the groups, that kind of mobility that you don't have in Zoom, because once you put them into breakout rooms, you kind of lose them. And like one thing we would do in the classroom a lot is fluid pairs, where you're getting students to practice with a new person all the time, and they're switching roles. Mm-hmm. And that's hard to do online, but it works really well in GatherTown. So I found it great for language learning, because they can just get up and move to the next group.
That's brilliant, Chris. I could see exactly how it could be used. And of course, exposure to the language as well. And everything is within the target language, that they're constantly being exposed to it. And they're kind of nearly in the target language country when they're in these virtual spaces. And would you be willing to kind of document any of this use? Because I'd love to put together a couple of case studies of people who've used it and what they thought of it and how it worked with the pedagogy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no problem.
Cool. I might touch base beyond that and maybe see if we could get some information together. Thanks, Krista.
That'd be great. Thanks, Neil. Thanks very much for today.
Francis, you've used it to play around with. You did your video for the horticulture one you created.
Yeah, just to play around with it. I haven't really used it per se. It's just investigation.
But you had your gnomes.
I don't know. Like, until you actually use it, it's hard to really say how well it's going to work out. Or for me anyway, because like I'm doing FET, so a lot of them aren't really that computer savvy. So it could be a kind of a steep learning curve for them.
Yeah. The only thing that I would say is in the past, before kind of these technologies that came out during the pandemic, there was always a download and system requirements needed for these virtual immersive environments. But GatherTown has kind of ripped up the rule book. Instead of going the Second Life with the kind of the snazzy graphics and the three-dimensional stuff, that's kind of pared it back. So all it is a link to a website, so the CPU isn't as big as it would have been previously. So in terms of the invite, it's just click and access as opposed to download and make sure you have these requirements. But I completely understand what you mean. Like there are definitely barriers there. I mean, education is not, at the moment, digital education is not a level playing field. And there are, of course, these barriers at play.
For sure. But more just kind of like, it's easy to use, but, you know, it might just scare them a little bit. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Sorry, Francis.
I was just going to say there was an email there from Mark Graham that is in the music department, and they've done an initiative with the School of Business to run an event in Garter Lane. And I can imagine it could be used very well for that, to provide kind of, before they were going to interact, say, with some real people and this kind of thing, to trial things, because an interdisciplinary type event being run by students like that is quite a big outcome, I suppose. So I think GatherTown would really work for that kind of environment.
As a test bed, like. Yeah. Tracy had an interesting application where she either was using it or has seen it being used in a context of poster presentations, where the little icon just stood beside their poster. People could walk up.
I've seen that as well. You know, the virtual galleries software that goes around, there's quite a lot of virtual galleries. It's very similar to that. You know, you walk around the room and all the posters, because that's a lot have happened for different conferences during COVID, you know. So it's definitely very similar to that, and break, like, you know, so even an internal conferencey type thing maybe would work. Postgraduate forum would be very interesting in it.
Absolutely. Paul, do you want to add to that before
just when Francis was talking there, I was wondering, Neil, what's it like on a phone?
It's a very good question. I haven't seen it on a phone at all. I haven't tried it on a phone. Maybe, does anyone have a phone handy that they could use this link?
I'll give it a go. So
that's a good question. Because I'm not sure how you would move.
I hate movement. It's the one thing I wouldn't mind if it didn't. If I could teleport all day long. I love the concept, but I hate the actual, you know, the way with the walking around thing. I hate it in the galleries as well, Zita. So.
Well, look, do you want to, I'll stop the recording here, and do you want to jump over for the next few minutes and we'll just go in and have a chat in the environment?
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, I have to go. I have kids to collect Fridays off.
No worries, Zita. I'll give you a private tour anytime. Just let me know.
Yeah, thanks very much. It's really good and well done. It's great to, as I said, get more exposure from other people's examples of it. You know, there's no point in us playing around with it a bit on our own when we can kind of get different contexts. Thanks,
absolutely.
Everyone.
Thanks, Zita. See you soon.
All right. Neil, can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
Say Francis got to the photo album just ahead of me. And he was on slide 3 or something like that. And then I rock up and do I have to wait for Francis to finish or can I click on it?
As far as I know, it'll just give you a different link so you can start where you need to.
Okay, excellent.
We had one application where we had we called it a Creaton. It was like a hackathon for students in Delft and Erasmus, and we had them all in and we gave them like Google Doc templates and Miro boards and stuff like that, so that when they opened it up, we could ensure that they were working off the one. Because it was editable, but the one I've given is only view only. So, but Paul, a very good question. And these are things that I just haven't really tested out. It'd be interesting to know. So I'm going to step into this to this link now. I'm just going to stop the recording, and we can stop.